Take five. Well, not take five for you, but this is something I wanted to do for a while. They're more for me than it is anyone else, and I won't share this with anyone unless they come across my page and see that I posted this. These are more of a reflection of who I am and where I'm currently at in my process of becoming a better version of myself. I want to do these, and this one especially because it's one of the first ones. I'm not going to edit them. I want it to be straight, raw, and filtered, unedited me, so you can see how my brain works. You can see where some of my resolve comes from, where I've taken necessary steps to learn from where I'm at now and move forward with life. And for me, for this first one, I wanted to kind of focus in on regret and overcoming depression and learning about patience. And for me, there was a journey that I took, and I wanted to go over those ones because for me, I've always been kind of very impatient, and it made me make bad decisions. And I'm not saying it made me; it was a part of who I was at the time, and you learn from things like that. But I made bad decision making skills, I had bad decision making skills, and I kept making bad decisions, and I can trace it back for a really long time. And it took a lot of me to grow out of that and learn how to be patient. And I think a lot of the reason why I made those bad decisions was because I was not patient. And I'm going to get further into that. Not too much into detail about what, but just discuss a little bit about it. So for the first one, I'm not going to name it. I'm just going to label them by the date. It's August 11, 2025. So let's get into it. Regret. Regret is such a strong emotion or concept to feel because you really can get lost in it. And for me, I did for a while. I made a plethora of bad decisions in a short amount of time. And I had a history of making bad decisions. None were as major as a few that I'm talking about that shaped the way my last year and some change has been. But if you let regret consume you, it will put you in a really dark place. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm not going to get into why I had so much regret, but a plethora of bad decision making skills led to me losing some things. Me having to take a hard look at myself in the mirror, really look at my character, look at my judgment, and assess that I wasn't the person that I was living up to be, or I wanted to live up to be. And because of that, I fell into a rather heavy depression because I had let regret consume me so much that I became a shell of who I was. And I mean that, and not in a metaphorical sense, yes, but it almost felt like I literally became a shell of who I was. I wasn't happy. I wasn't gleeful like I usually am. I wasn't smiling. I was lonely. Or if you want to say it peacefully, in solitude, but I was lonely. And you think like, okay, this guy's filled with regret. He's depressed. He would reach out to his friends. But if you know anyone that has been depressed, you know that that's not what you do. You seclude yourself even more. So I tried to talk to my friends when I could, but for the large part, I was ignoring a lot of my friends and family. I would not answer and look at their messages and just pray that, things would get better. But it just felt like a pit. And I believe the stem of it was from the regret of me, addressing those issues and then not thinking about ways to get out of it and ways to move forward. But I just soaked in it and I let it consume me. I wouldn't get out of bed at times. And then when I finally did, I wouldn't eat. I would go to the gym and work to distract myself. I remember I went to the gym like 3 times in 28 hours. And I'm talking about full workouts, full runs. It was something to distract myself. I had lost like, I think 13 pounds in 8 days or something. It was ridiculous. I was starving myself because I let that regret consume me. And when you let regret consume you, it devolves into depression, which I had. I was separating myself from my friends. I wasn't spending as much time as possible being outside, but it wouldn't work. And it wasn't until I addressed who I was, who I wanted to become, and how to change myself. So when I was in that form, I think when I tell people, I'm like, okay, you made a bad decision, but how do you learn from it? How do you move on from it? Because if you keep thinking about it and you say that you regret it and you keep blaming yourself and you keep putting yourself down for something that's already happened, it won't make you better. I remember I just kept telling myself, well, what if I didn't? What if I could travel back in time? What if I could change what I did? Why did I do what I did? And I think when you get so lost in that, you don't realize that there is a path forward to becoming a better person, to changing your outlook on where you're at. But you just get so involved in the past and that regret, you just start to really hate who you were, why you did what you did, and you hate who you are. And it becomes a nasty cycle of, oh, I'm doing better now. And then you start thinking about it again, like, why did I do it? And you think about it every day. And it's not one of those things where you think about it once a day and it happens. I mean, everything reminds you of it. You're like, why? And that's not okay. And at some point, you have to move on forward from it. But I didn't. I let it consume me for entirely too long. But I was able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I started doing some help. I started reaching out to my family and friends more. Started becoming who I was again. I started laughing a lot more. Started sending my friends messages again and acting like I was actually a normal functioning human. Very interesting for sure. It took a lot of me to move forward and become the best version of myself. And I'm still not there. I still am striving to move forward every day and become a better version of myself. But I really advocate for people who have gone through some, let's say, downs in your life and you regret and you letting it consume you. Please don't move forward from it. Try your best. Learn from it. Really put the time in. For me, I took a lot of time away, and I really took a lot of time to go to therapy, self-help, listen to a lot of self-help podcasts. Shout out to the Jay Shetty. And I relied heavily on my friends again, and not in the sense where I made them feel as though like I was a burden to them. And that's one thing I think that you also shouldn't think about. You shouldn't think you're a burden to your friends, because if they're your friends, it will never make you feel like you're a burden. But I didn't bring it up. I just was enjoying my time with them. I would enjoy my time together with them and let myself be who I used to be when I was around them, because I felt like I wasn't anymore. So even though I had to fake it, it was something that helped me get to the point of where I wasn't who I was anymore, but I resembled it more than I did when I was letting regret consume me and depression consume me. And now I'm better. I don't think like, oh, I'm magically better, but I take a lot of time to focus on myself, like I said, and mature, grow, realize how to address that, how to move on from it, how to grow from it. And how to be I think for sure one of the one things I want to tackle was how to be more patient. I think for me, patience has always been something that was lacking. My mom says all the time, she's like, sometimes you're, for a very smart kid, you have some very poor impulse control sometimes when it comes to certain things. And for example, to be completely transparent, at one point I was so focused on getting away from my current situation because I had let that regret consume me, and I just thought that if I got away or I moved away, that I would be better. Like suddenly things would change. Suddenly I would be a better person, or things would just somehow be a better situation for me. And that's not the case. No matter where you go, if you try to outrun your problems, it will always catch back up to you, because at the sole root of it, you are what your problems are. And for me, literally, I was what my problems were. So I remember at one point I almost took a really crappy job, and I was like, well, at least it's just helping to get me back home. And my mom was like, hey, I think you really need to take some time, think about it, and be patient. And I was like, no, I'm stuck here. I'm trapped here. I don't like where I'm at. I will take this job. I know it sucks right now, but it's something to get me back home. And she's like, well, I think you really need to talk about it, and we'll talk to this guy. She referred me to this guy that was a motivational speaker, helper, and someone that was outspoken in our community. Not our personal community back home, but a community that we knew. And I talked to him, and he goes, well, why do you want to go home? And I said, because I laid out some of the base work, but I didn't give him too much information. And he said, well, it seems like you're trying to outrun the problem rather than address it, because if you move back, nothing's really going to change. You're just going to be in a new location. And that really stuck with me. I said, that's very true. Like, I'm not just going to magically feel better. I'm just going to be in a new location feeling the same, trying to convince myself that I will. Nothing's going to change until I address the problems that have occurred. And I did. I listened to him, I listened to my mom. I took like a week on it. And I remember I was just like, you know what? This might not be the smartest decision for me. I think I should be patient and stick to the course, because sometimes moving back home isn't just it's not the answer. It's not the answer going back to where you're comfortable, because sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to then be comfortable. And I think that was a great decision for me. Um, Another instance was I had an opportunity to take a different job, and I don't think it was the right fit. It would have been a good opportunity, but I think career progression, it wouldn't have been very smart for me. And I remember I was so just focused on leaving my area. Like I said, I just wasn't very happy, and some of that was a combination of, like I said, bad decisions, and some of it was you're telling yourself you're not happy, right? So I almost took a really crappy job. Not really crappy. That's very disrespectful to the job. It just wasn't the right fit for me. Maybe a year or a year and a half ago, I would have taken it, but it just wasn't the right fit. And I think just the location of it was what was really enticing to me, because it was in Miami, and it was a great job. It was a great job. Great managers, great not managers, but great team leads. But I was only going to take it because it was in Miami, and it was somewhere that was a city, and it was new, and it was young, and it was not, well, no, not new, but new to me, and it was young, and it was somewhere that wasn't where I currently am. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to take it, I think, and talked to my mom about it. And I was like, hey, this sounds really enticing. I'm going to go down there and visit and see if I like it. And I just didn't. It wasn't that I just didn't, it just didn't feel like a right fit for me. Um, and I knew that they knew it too when we interviewed. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I think at a different point in my life, I would have taken it, but it wasn't a good fit for me at the time. And that's one thing I'm really glad I didn't do, because I didn't want to be unhappy somewhere else and then commit to something again and then not be happy. And I don't think that's fair. It doesn't look good professionally either. So I'm glad I did. I'm glad I learned a lot from, and this rant probably isn't the best starting point, but I'll get better as I make these. But it was something to do and something to try out. And if someone watches it, I hope you've gathered something from this. It's more of like a diary to myself that I have. Yeah, I don't know. I hope someone learns something from this, or maybe they just look at me and they're like, "Oh, this is kind of cool to see what his perspective is like." And if you have a different perspective, then maybe you learn something, or maybe you just take away something. You're like, maybe this guy's nuts. I don't know. But if you've watched this entire video, thank you for hearing my rant, and I guess taking a peek into who I am.